Good afternoon and welcome back to the continuation of the Central Committee meeting number 7 for today, Monday, December 4th, 2023. I give the floor to the Minister of Finance to answer the questions posed by members of Parliament. Minister. Minister, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of Parliament. Good afternoon, viewing public. Mr. Chairman, I would like to first start off by saying we don't fully have the answers from ECYS and Justice as yet, but I'll answer all the others in the meantime while we get those answers to not keep back the meeting anymore. So I'll first start with the questions from MP Akim Arundel. MP posed a question regarding finance the backlog of the tax department, the Vineyard building. If it's a risk to the budget, has the ministry considered allocating any funds for assisting the workers, overtime, etc., etc., etc.? As the collection of the receiver's office is budgeted and not the levying by the inspectorate of the taxes, the backlog of the levying by the inspectorate does not pose a risk for the budget. With regard to the backlog of the levying at the inspectorate, assistance of temporary workers is put in place as part of the project Quick Wins of the Tax Administration Transformation Plan. MP Westcott Williams. Question regarding the changes that are made to the medical coverage, considering that the general health insurance as announced by government will no longer go into effect January 2024, and the 8 million guilders not going into effect until January 2025. What happens to the uninsured categories like taxi drivers, bus drivers, vendors, and sole proprietors? Upon taking office, Minister Otley prepared a reparation legislation known as SAB 1B that addresses this issue. This draft law has returned from the Council of Advice. The NADA report is being drafted and should be at Parliament within short, with the hope of the implementation by the end of the first quarter 2024. MP question regarding TIAT and BTP, the MOU between GB. The answer: in 2017, BTP was indeed commissioned by the then sitting ministers of Rummy and TIAT to do a market research and update on the energy policy in order to make suggestions as to how to assign the regulatory task to BTP for the utility sector. A findings report was submitted to the Minister of TIAT along with an advice as to how we saw this most feasible in our market. The report was recently resent to the Cabinet of TIAT and is being reviewed to provide BTP with a formal response on how to move forward. As a result, no regulatory activities are currently being executed by BTP over the utility sector of GB as a legislative amendment is required. Next question by the MP regarding the social welfare, social assistance that is tied to the maximum of the minimum wage. Understand the social assistance need to be adjusted as well. Has that happened? If not, why? And so forth. Answer: a draft LB-HAM is currently on its way to my person, indexing financial aid based on the recent increase in minimum wage. In order to automatically link financial aid amounts to increase in minimum wage, this requires a legislative amendment, which the Minister of VSA is also working on and should commence its legal trajectory within short. Regarding, next question by MP, this was regarding the marketplace. Can the Minister step by step indicate what is to happen with the Phillipsburg marketplace? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Royal Caribbean has pledged an amount of $350,000, which the government of St. Martin will match. The public tender was done and a contractor selected. The advice is currently making its rounds prior to reaching the Council of Ministers for a final decision. Following this, the groundbreaking will commence. Next question. The Minister of ASR indicated that the retroactive payment is not going to be paid out in December, but the pensioners who are entitled or so-called 13-month of action will receive that 13th month in December, and the retroactive payment of 2023 in January 2024. Can that picture that I sketched be confirmed? If correct, can it be rectified? The 13th month was paid in November as pension is prepaid, so the pay received in November represents December. The retroactive will be paid out in December 2023, according to the minister. Vrummy, the road plan of the minister, the next question regarding the road plan of the Ministry of Vrummy, can the plan itself be shared with the members of Parliament of St. Martin? So which roads are we going to be doing? Are the Orange Road repairs completed? The condition seems to be worse than before. The ministry plans to address the main roads infrastructure in line with the CAPEX plans that were shared with Parliament last year. These will be financed through our annual operational budget and the recent CAPEX funding that was recently secured. For the ministry will be focused on critical areas first. The ministry will also be paving several dirt roads through the first concrete hard surfacing program, which is focused on dirt roads that are connected to our main roads network. This is being by the CAPEX fund that were secured on the budget 2023. We intend to continue this annual program for the paving of dirt roads, providing the monies are secured. Furthermore, the ministry will continue to strengthen our infrastructure when it pertains to the small road maintenance and enhancing road safety via our operational budget. There's also a list of roads that are part of the hard surfacing project. It's a list of about 40 plus roads. So I could have that sent to you in writing, unless you prefer me to read all the roads. No? Okay, thank you. In addition to that, MP, I happened to, in the short break that we had, drive down on Orange Grove. And I think what you experienced in Orange Grove was when they were busy, they had dirt on the side of the road to help while they were digging up to keep the water from flowing back on the road. So if you happen to pass there today, you'll see it's a lot more cleaner than it was a couple of days ago, because it's still in repair mode. Next question. Yeah, so that's all the answers for MP Westcott Williams that are not related to ECWS or Justice. Those are on its way. And I'll move on to the questions posed by MP DeWeaver. MP DeWeaver had a question regarding the COLA, the budget, and everything along the lines of the COLA. Regarding the COLA, MP, government met with the unions last week, and in principle, the unions and the government have an agreement regarding the indexation and COLA, among other matters. The proposal has been sent to the unions, who have to still have a discussion with their membership, which is happening this week, for the final approval. So we are awaiting that final approval this week, but in principle, we do have an agreement through the CCSU, the legal body which this agreement has to happen through, on not just the COLA, but a lot of other matters also regarding civil servants. Next question was regarding the Parliament building. The Parliament building is a priority for government. Currently, a design, finance, build, lease, operate, maintain, and transfer document is being finalized, which will provide us with an estimate for the new Parliament building. Parking garage and government offices. Included in this document are the needs of Parliament as well as the government while ensuring the buildings are future-proof. This will give government the proper substantiation and financial picture to be able to include in the budget once finalized. MP Westcott then had a follow-up question regarding the recently opened dedicated tourist office. What are the financial consequences for the new tourist office? To where the tourist office was located, did this require any amendments to the budget 2023? If so, where is it to be found? The answer, the monthly rental amount of the previous units at the Juancho Yuskin Boulevard was US $10,000. This was approximately 300 square meters of unit space. Currently, the rent is $27,000, which includes 530 square meters of space, office space rent monthly, cost of renovating and outfitting the building. The new location is also in a prime location and is in a historic building in the capital, St. Martin, and is ideal for easy access for visitors and community alike. Further, this historic site can accommodate small meetings and be used as a venue for important gatherings, receptions, making it a multi-functional location, which the tourist office and its country operations would benefit from, and is cost efficient as the other venues do not have to be rented. And now move on to the questions by MP Melissa Gums. MP Melissa Gums mentioned the failed health levy that was then sent to Ministry of ASR to find a solution, the challenges that prevented the levy from moving forward, as it was featured heavily as an extra income driver in your original budget. The answer, the only setback is that the lack of the SARE board. However, the government is in the final stages for the board to be established. Next question by the MP was regarding the IMF report of July 2023, economic recovery projections, and wanted that the government provide an update as to what are the plans of addressing the IMF actual recommendations to make those projections actually a reality. Recently, the ministry has started to work on several initiatives related to the policies as suggested by the IMF in their Article 4 report. The measure of the 12.5% is no longer applicable. The legislation pertaining to this has been adjusted. The adjustment of the tax legislation and the revamping of the tax office are also currently ongoing. Both initiatives ensure structural increase in revenue. This will lead to surpluses, which can then be used to pay off outstanding arrears to, for example, APS and SFE. As it pertains to an in-house macroeconomic framework, the Ministry of Finance had a training with the CARTAC for a macro fiscal framework to be able to revenue forecasting in 2024. The ministry will continue with several trainings pertaining to the macro fiscal tool that will be introduced by CARTAC. The Ministry of Finance has also had technical assistance from CARTAC as it pertains to our public investments, where gap assessments were done. Several of the recommendations from this are also being looked at. This should strengthen the public investment cycle. And next year, the ministry will also get technical assistance from CARTAC when it comes to debt management and cash forecasting. In relation to the question for the VRUMI, in relation to that same question for the Ministry of VRUMI and improvement processes, in relation to building permits, the ministry has developed an application to handle the building permit process from the application request to issuance. The team is currently busy upgrading the application to reflect the new building codes requirements and some additions so that we can have a smooth trial process with handling building permits digitally. The soft launch will allow the ministry to iron out any possible kinks and give familiar participants the opportunity to provide critical feedback. We expect this application to improve the process and experience of obtaining permits for the ministry, from the ministry. Mr. Chairman, that would be the answers without that from Education and Justice. I would like about 5 minutes to confirm if the other two ministries have sent their answers, please.
Thank you, Minister. I see there's more additional need for deliberation on this topic because I have some members of Parliament asking for more questions. And the first one is MP Christopher Emmanuel. MP Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to my honorable colleagues. Good afternoon to the Honorable Minister and his support staff and everyone who's watching via this means. I have a few questions relating to justice and a number of questions on GEBE. Mr. Chairman, I stand to be corrected. I believe my colleague, MP Westcott, asked a question concerning the new tourism office building. What I didn't hear was the amount in the rent that is paid. Yeah, like I said, I stand to be corrected how much it was. So I don't know if the minister wants to make that correction, Mr. Chairman, as to how much it is in rent every month for the new building.
Minister, if you could just give that number and through the chairman, please.
Yes, my apologies, Mr. Chairman. True, Mr. Chairman, I mentioned it was $27,000.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so in with that being said, and I thank the minister for making that correction because it was brought to my attention that it was around, that's okay, it's Christmas, it's all right. That it was around $30,000 a month, so 27,000, about 3,000 less. So if that is the case, Mr. Chairman, I am trying to do the quick calculation. Probably one of my colleagues can. So if you look at it, Mr. Chairman, and I also believe the contract is for about 5 years. I also believe, so we are talking about $27,000 a month, and we are looking at 5 years. So we are looking at anywhere in between 3.9, 3 point something million that we'll be paying the Goyas for this building in 5 years. I would like to ask the Honorable Minister, Mr. Chairman, seeing that that is the case, that private individuals that are millionaires will be receiving 3 point something million in 5 years. How it is that the justice workers, would be or have to be receiving their retroactive pay over 10 years. Because at the end of it, Mr. Chairman, it is the same taxpayers' money that the same justice workers, all of us, would be paid or coming out from us to also pay for this new tourism office at the tune of $27,000 a month, Mr. Chairman. And in 5 years contract, they are looking at 3 point something million, but the justice workers have to wait over 10 years to receive their retroactive pay. Can the minister give the correlation as to how is that possible, Mr. Chairman, or why is that they have to wait over 10 years to receive their retroactive pay? And if that is the case, Mr. Chairman, where in the budget amendment can we see how much money would be going to justice workers? How much in terms of a number? So is it 5 million? Is it 3 something million? Is it 2 million? How much would be going to justice workers? And can the minister give an detailed plan out in terms of over the 10 years? Would it be that every year 2 million, every 5 years? How is it going to be, Mr. Chairman? Also, what exactly in terms of in the pockets of these individuals, of the justice workers, can one say, well, yes, I have seen an increase or I have gotten an additional amount in my salary? And with that being said, can the minister also, seeing that he's a minister of finance, Mr. Chairman, when will this happen once the budget amendment is passed? Is it going to happen in December? Is it going to happen in January? When is it going to happen? Is it going to happen at the end of this month? When would this money be paid out to the justice workers? And also with that being said, Mr. Chairman, can the minister explain or finally set the record straight when it comes to reimbursement. The justice worker that received money from the last time when Minister Duran was the minister and monies was paid out, will any of that money have to be paid back? Will any of that money have to be paid back? And if yes, can the minister explain why, if any of this money will have to be paid back? Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, those are the questions I have relating to that issue concerning the monies. And I would also like to ask the minister relating to GB, Mr. Chairman, given the situation and the current situation that they're in, is the minister aware of any financial crisis or situation that GEBE is facing right now? And if the minister is aware, can the minister explain what financial crisis GEBE is facing right now as the moment? Can the minister also give a breakdown of the current accounts on GEBE books right now, Mr. Chairman? For example, what is the current bank account balance in the checking, guilder, and dollar account at WIB? Mr. Chairman, are they in negative? Can the minister give an answer to that if it's the case? Mr. Chairman, concerning the company financial reporting, is it true that it had been over 2 years now and GEBE cannot do any financial reporting via the SAP system? And if so, please explain why, Mr. Chairman. Also, Mr. Chairman, is it true that the financial reporting can only be done and is only being done via the bank statement? If yes, can the minister explain why this is being done this way? And if that is true, my question that follows next is once again, Mr. Chairman, is it true that NVGEB cannot up to present send a ransomware attack determine the current amount of their revenues due to the fact that the billing system is still not fixed, Mr. Chairman? If so, again, please can the minister explain why? Mr. Chairman, can the minister explain the monitoring and the billing system? It's public secret that the problem is still ongoing with lots of incorrect bills. I was made to understand there are still more than 6,000 consumers that have yet to be billed, Mr. Chairman. Is this correct? Is the Minister of Finance aware of this, Mr. Chairman? And if so, please state why. And if that's not true, or if that's not the amount, then can the minister explain, or if he's aware of what the correct amount is? Mr. Chairman, also furthermore, can the minister give an indication to members of parliament or to the general public when these issues at GEBE will be solved? When will our only electricity company return to normalcy as it is, Mr. Chairman? We have seen the protests, we have seen the concerns, we have seen so many things going on with GEBE. Mr. Chairman, can the minister give an explanation? What is the reason that the financial statement for the year 2020, 2021, and 2022 was not executed, especially since we are now entering into 2024 of GEBE? I would also like to ask the minister, are you aware of the seriousness of this not being completed, or should I say terrible move for the utility company considering its requirement that it also needed in the event GEBE intends to get loans and financing, that their financial statement needs to be up to par and accurate, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, is it true that NVGEBE is missing 9 months of data for the year 2021? If this is the case, then correct me if I'm wrong, but does that mean that the financial year of 2021 will have to be written off? And wouldn't this be a heavy blow for GEBE, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, is it true that the year 2022 NVGEBE is missing 2 months of data? And if this is true, when it is correct that NVGEB in 3 years behind financial statement. Let me repeat that question, Mr. Chairman. Is it true that the year 2022, NVGEBE is missing 2 months of data? And if this is the case, or if this is true, then it is correct that NVGEBE is 3 years behind in financial statement. Would the minister agree with that, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, in relation to the crisis team, was a budget in the amount of 1 million guilders set up in GEBE for the crisis team? If yes, and if so, has that budget been surpassed? And Mr. Chairman, if the budget has been surpassed, can the minister give the accurate amount and figure in terms of how much it has been surpassed with? Mr. Chairman, is the crisis team still working in GEBE after a year and a half? So in other words, are they still there, and how much are they being paid? For example, Mr. Chairman, in my article I published, I highlighted the excessive expenditures on consultants, including TRN from Aruba, was being paid $65,000 a month. Is this true? DCC consultants was being paid $10,000 a month. Is this true? Jacqueline Lewis, one of the campaign managers for Only Marlin campaign marketing manager, was paid $6,000 a month. Is this true? Despite NVGEBE do have a marketing and a PR full-time employee. Is it true, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, what is really going on at the power plant? I have taken notice, however, let me not say. The public has taken notice, Mr. Chairman, of the ongoing excessive power outages, and again, why? Mr. Chairman, can the minister give an explanation as to why power outages is on a constant level at GEBE? Is it true, Mr. Chairman, that NVGEBE asked ADF for lubricant oil, but the type that they had was not suitable for GEBE engines due to the specifications? If this is true, Mr. Chairman, or can it be confirmed that this did occur, the reason for such would be due to poor logistics? So in other words, Mr. Chairman, GEBE down at the power plant, they run out of lubricants to lubricate the engines. And because of such, they asked ADF on the front side for lubricants. But the lubricant that is used on the equipment or on the generators on the front side, Mr. Chairman, is different to what is used at the power plant. So I'm asking the Honorable Minister, one, if he's aware of it, and two, would he classify this as simply being poor management and logistics, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, is it correct that because the company ran out, management decided to use all lubricant oil, which allegedly damaged engine 14 plus another engine? So in other words, Mr. Chairman, GEBE right now had no money to purchase lubricants, and they couldn't get lubricants from the front side. So what they did, they went and used all discarded lubricant oil, which damaged engine 14. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the Honorable Minister if he's aware of this. And if he's aware of it, can that report be given to Parliament, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, I listened to the Honorable Prime Minister when she made mention that women should be in positions I'm off track. Oh, sorry about that, Minister, sorry about that. Mr. Chairman, I listened to the Honorable Prime Minister, and she made mention that she believed that women should be in all decision-making positions, and women have a right to be in those positions, and I wholeheartedly, 100%, if it's one thing I agree with the Prime Minister in a very long time, it has to be on that statement and on that issue and on that matter that she made. I do agree. But on the other hand, Mr. Chairman, if that is the case, that women should be in all those positions and all those decision-making positions, Mr. Chairman, why it is that today Shireen Daniel is still at home after winning her court cases and not in the decision-making position that she should be in, Mr. Chairman, and the government is agreeing with NVGBE paying Shireen Daniel extra to stay home every day. She's being paid just to stay home when she has a 5-year contract signed by the government of St. Martin and the shareholders. So since you believe that women should be in decision-making position, why is it that she's not in her position? Mr. Chairman, can the minister get an answer to that, please? In addition to that, can also, Mr. Chairman, the minister return to Parliament with the answers as the correct amount that Shireen Daniel is being paid just to stay at home? Mr. Chairman, is it true, because of damage that occurred on the 2 engines, now NVGBE has 2 engines running on light fuel, which is costing the company $1.10 per liter? Is this the reason that the people of St. Martin electricity bills has since doubled? And if so, why didn't NVGBE management, government of St. Martin, alert the public and caution them on the usage of their electricity? Mr. Chairman, does NVGBE now pay SOL $1 million extra per usage of light fuel, LFO, a month, totaling monthly payments in the amount of $7 million to SOL? Mr. Chairman, by the way, NVGEB up to date, are they up to date with their SOL payments? Or in other words, when was the last time SOL has been paid by NVGEBE? Mr. Chairman, NVGEB ransomware attack for the second time within a year and months time span. On July the 20th, 2023, NVGEBE informed the general public about an important measure we have taken to secure our IT infrastructure. Our monitoring team observed an abnormal pattern in our IT system last night, July 18, 2023, resulting in NVGEB being closed on July 18, 19, and 20th. This statement was further adopted and confirmed by the Prime Minister Sylvia Jacob in the COM press briefing and in Parliament, who elaborated further by stating that due to the rapidness of NVGEBE, management who identified funny movements in the system and maxed the decision to close its doors to the public in order to ensure that the system was properly safeguarded. Question, Mr. Chairman. On July the 18th, Tuesday, 2023, at 10 p.m., did NVGEBE suffer another, or should I say, for the second time within a year and months, a ransomware attack by the BISCO, which compromised the entire system? Was the IT infrastructure data within the SAP EPR, file service, etc., encrypted in addition with the PCs infected? Thus, in other words, was all the company data gone once again, just like the Black Byte ransomware attack on March the 17th, 2022? Mr. Chairman, the question is, how were the hackers able to enter into NVGEBE system once again? Is it true that they entered into one of GEBE's router? In other words, the firewall, one of the users. So basically, what the hackers did was obtain a user's name, then ran a script on one of the user's name with different combinations of password. And with that being said, Mr. Chairman, can the minister explain how is it possible that the hackers used one of the routers to enter into the system when GEBE is paying a company, Mr. Chairman, $500,000 a year, which they have already received $250,000 already from that $500,000 to supply them with routers and other data to protect such system, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, is it correct that management IT specialists assumed that the hackers run it for days and days until they find a combination which is called a brute force attack? Can the minister explain what is called or what is considered a brute force attack? Just for the public knowledge, Mr. Chairman, a brute attack uses a trial and error approach to systematically guess login info, credentials, and encryption keys. The attacker submits combinations of usernames and passwords until they finally guess one correctly. Mr. Chairman, can the minister confirm if this is true or not? And if that is the case, can the minister provide that information and data to the members of parliament? Mr. Chairman, is it true that the reporting of this ransomware might have not been done the right way due to its secrecy? GEBE did not report it to KPSM, but remain to KPSM, but I remind the question, GEBE, management following the reporting guidelines that was carried out with a previous attack, considering a ransomware is not a local attack, but an international attack that has to be handled by Interpol, etc., etc. Another concern, Mr. Chairman, I have is, since I know it was a ransomware attack and not an irregular, did NVGEB verify on the black market, dark web, to see if there is any information extract anywhere out in the underworld when it comes to, Mr. Chairman, the internet? Is the data of St. Martin people information surfacing anywhere in the black market attack when it comes to internet, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, I have many more questions, but for now, I will leave it so. I thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Emmanuel. Next, we have MP Sarah Westcott Williams. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to all. Good afternoon to the Minister and his support staff, and thank you, Minister, for the answers provided. Mr. Chairman, allow me to start with some clarification requests based on the answers provided by the Minister. With respect to my question,
I see that the Minister maybe wanted to interject, if we'll allow that for the minute. Minister, you have the floor.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman. In the meantime, we have gotten the answers from Justice and Education. MP, would you prefer that we just answer all questions so you have all your clarifications in one shot?
Let me check with the Member of Parliament and other members of Parliament. The Minister indicated that some additional questions from Justice have come in. We could break the sequence temporarily to allow those questions to be answered and then continue with the sequence. Or would the members of Parliament want to continue with their questions regardless of the answers received? What would be your preference? Let me ask first MP Westcott Williams.
Mr. Chairman, actually my request for clarification has to do with only the answers that we just got. So I think it might be a little better for the process if I can pose those. So they're only based on what the Minister has already responded to.
Okay. So what we can do then is have those clarifications, and before you ask any new questions, we go back to the Minister. Agreed?
Fair enough.
Okay. So MP Westcott, you may continue.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, the Minister answered on behalf of the other ministers my question regarding the medical coverage for persons who are not covered at the moment, given the fact that the general health insurance is now slated to be introduced in 2025. And the response to that question was that there is reparation legislation that has been drafted, sent to the Council of Advice. A report was prepared, and that it will be at Parliament soon. And I would like to ask, what exactly does the repair legislation or reparation legislation include? So if the minister can just give a global indication, does this now mean that those who are currently not covered, such as vendors, taxi and bus drivers, and sole proprietors, does the reparation legislation, will it include those persons now to receive coverage, is my question. Secondly, the minister responded in connection with my question about a MOU having been signed with BTP for some type of oversight over GEBE. That was signed back in 2017. And the minister responded, and I paraphrase, that a report was made based on that MOU. Apparently nothing, and the minister can confirm or correct, apparently nothing was done on the basis of that MOU except for a report to be made. That report now has been resubmitted now recently to the minister, is my question. That's a recent submission of that report. Is that report a public document? Can the report that apparently was there from BTP regarding GEBE, can that report be shared with Parliament? And I'm understanding that it had nothing to do with regulatory oversight, but rather with the energy plan of government. So again, can that report by BTP regarding the energy plans of government, can that be shared with Parliament? The minister responded to my question or my statement that the welfare, the understand payments to persons need to be adjusted based on the fact that the minimum wage was adjusted. The minister responded on behalf of his colleague that regulation is now being made for this to take place, for this adjustment to take place. And if the minister can be a little more specific about, since the current regulation, the current so-called LBHAM, ties the payment, the maximum payment of understand to the minimum wage level. So why is another regulation necessary to now adjust the payments of understand based on the increase of minimum wage? Why is now another trajectory necessary to make that happen? The minister answered with respect to the question about the Phillipsburg marketplace and the other amenities that are part of the project, that this matter has been put on bid. This proposal has come to government. A contractor has been selected, and that Royal Caribbean Group has committed $300,000 to the project. So am I to understand that this project will cost the 776,000 guilders in the budget, plus the 300,000 committed by Royal Caribbean Group? So is that a total project? And can the minister inform us who won the bid for the Phillipsburg marketplace? The minister, in response to my question about the retroactive payment due to our pensioners, the following: that the 13-month has been paid, and since pension is paid in advance, this has happened in December, but the retroactive is going to be paid in December. The pension payments for December have already been made. Does that mean that another payroll, another payment would be made in December. That will include the retroactive that is due to the pensioners since January of 2023. So since pension payments have already taken place in the early part, in fact, in December, when will now the retroactive that is due in December, when will that be paid? The minister indicated that with respect to the road plan, and apparently there's a list with 40-something roads to be repaired, to be had surfaced, but in the budget elucidation, in more than one location, mention is made of a specific plan of the Ministry of VROMI where roads are concerned. And my question was, can we have this plan? The minister has given some indication as to the intentions, but is there a plan on paper? And if there is a plan on paper, can we receive that plan? I will, of course, follow the minister and check out the situation on the Orange Grove Road again, because even after the repairs that were done, that road was in a very deplorable state, not only with the dirt on the sides, but also the running water, etc., etc. And then the matter of the tourist office, the minister mentioned the amount of $27,000, which he confirmed per month, and the larger area of the new tourist office. But then the minister mentioned something about improvements. Are these improvements that needed to be made included in the $27,000 rent, or is that additional? Are my questions. Mr. Chairman, I'll stop here now because these have to do with what the minister already answered to. And I'll come with my other questions subsequently. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams, and indeed members of Parliament. Considering that there are some additional answers coming related to justice, if I may suggest then that we continue basically clarifying answers. After we go through this list, we go back to the minister, which will to provide those answers from earlier today. Next, we have MP Ludmila De Weaver.
Thank you, Chair. For clarification on the answers received regarding the COLA, or the cost of living adjustment for civil servants, I understand that the minister said information was sent to the unions. They're waiting further conversation, an agreement with CCSU, through an agreement with CCSU. My clarification then is the fact that there was an expectation of payment being made within the next 2 months. So I just want to know, is there a payment going to be made in the next 2 months, or is this contingent on further discussions? So I just want to know if a payment is going to be made to civil servants. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, MP Ludmila De Weaver. The next person I see is MP Rolando Bryson. MP Bryson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. However, some of my questions are indeed related to justice. So like the speakers before me, I would choose to, I don't need any further clarification to the answers that were given, but I would await the opportunity to hear the answers from the minister and then continue with clarifications to those as well as my additional questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Bryson. And with that, I don't see any other member of parliament asking for questions. So I will look to my right. Minister, with your new updated answers, are you ready? Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll now proceed with the questions posed by MP Akim Arundel. There was a budget for 2.5 million guilders retroactive for the police force. He wanted to know what that means. It is including CAPE SM, but also everybody in the Ministry of Justice. Next answer, it will be paid out according to their respective LBAs. So the question was that he noted there was no amount budgeted for retroactive for prisoners, prison workers, immigration officers, custom officers. Can I receive an examination of the progress of how it is going to be paid out? The answer again is it will be paid out according to the respective LBAs. How is the workload at the customs? How was the sick leave being handled? Customs has been managing the situation as effectively as possible. However, the lack of personnel remains a challenge. To address the sick leave, the department is considering working with MedWorks on an occupational health service which supports organizations with the management of sick leave. Ministry of Justice has used MedWorks in the past. How are the resignations being handled of persons who joined the force, including customs? Resignations of personnel, including those within customs, follow a formal procedure that includes submission of a resignation letter, subsequent handling and response to the letter, adherence to any notice period, and final settlement procedure. The aim is to ensure a transition that involves proper communication with all parties involved. Can VKS support customs in dealing with sick leave? The possibility has been considered and will be explored further. One of the requirements that have been identified is that the sufficient funds will have to be budgeted for to pay for this support. Now move on to the questions by MP Sarah Scott Williams. Can the minister provide a picture of the payout for the justice workers and what the now $3 million on the retroactive and on the police organization budget? What, who, how will that cover? The initial phase of placement is to process the active personnel placement decrease as per the 1st of January 2023. The anticipated cost for this placement and the retroactive corrections will be sufficiently covered by the budget 2023. The retroactive expenses related to the LBA for corrective placement between the period of 10/10/10 and 31/12/2022 will be handled in phase 2 and 3, realized in 2024, and is to be captured in the multi-annual budget provision of $4 to $6 million as of 2024 and beyond. As such, the current budgeted funds are sufficient to cover the initial phase of this process. Each staff member will receive an individual LBA and will be paid accordingly. Next question. The MP noted the retroactive payment has been increased to $700,000 from $2 million. What does this mean regarding the payout? The initial phase of placement is to process. Oh, I mentioned that. The same answer. The same answer as above. The initial phase of placement is to process the active personnel placement decree as per 1st of January 2023. The anticipated cost of this placement and the retroactive corrections will be sufficiently covered by the budget 2023. The retroactive expenses related to the LBA for corrective placement between the period of 10/10/10 and 31/12/2022 will be handled in phase 2 and 3, realized in 2024, and is to be captured in the multi-annual budget provisions of $4 to $6 million as of 2024 and beyond. As such, the current budgeted funds are sufficient to cover the initial phase of this process. Each staff member will receive an individual LBA and will be paid accordingly. And I'll move on to the justice questions and answers for MP Gums. The answer to MP Gums' question: the final stage with SYB has been completed and the final tender documents are being presented to the Ministry of Justice this week for approval and publication. The tender documents will be made available to the public this week. The publication of the tender to appear soon on their social media platforms and in the newspaper. The tender has been subdivided in 3 individual contracts: bread, food supplies, and cleaning supplies. This tender procedure will have an invited digital information session to those who have formally requested tender documents. The opportunity to submit a bid proposal to one or more of the 3 contracts will be until mid-January 2024. The evaluation of the received bid proposals are supported by the guidance of SYB and the head of planning and control within the ministry. The formal selection process and the contract formalization slated for the February of 2024. The grocery contract has not increased in value, noting specifically the overall cost for bread, food supplies, and cleaning supplies has significantly reduced since the inclusion of wholesale supplier. However, a number of outstanding invoices from previous years had been pending a resolution and has also impacted the budget 2023 so as to resolve their arrears with the supplier. The budget post 5202, voting 43421 is impacted by more than one vendor, namely the wholesaler, prime distributors, and retail supplier Margarita Groceries. To date, the realized expenses for the period of up to October 2023 amounted to 535,000 guilders, of which 75% is accounted to the wholesaler, which I mentioned previously, and 25% to the grocery store. The increased account will accommodate the anticipated cost for the remaining part of 2023, noting that the overall cost of food supplies have inflated, yet we have also noted a significant decrease in realized expenses compared to past due to the inclusion of the wholesale supplier. That are all the questions and answers from Justice. Now move on to those from Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports. First question. Move on to the questions from Mr. Arundel, MP Arundel. Can I get an example as to why there's no budget amount for the repairs for the school in Mill Region? A tour related to the assessment of educational infrastructure and materials has been drafted and has been put out to bid to be funded through reserves in the budget 2023. The assessment, which is planned to be executed in 2024, will inform the multi-annual capital investments for educational infrastructure. The reconstruction project for the system around schools is part of the Fostering Resilient Learning Project to be executed from the trust fund budget managed by NRPB. Has any research been done to introduce solar panels for the school? No. Has any consideration been made with regard to the installation of the air conditioning in classrooms? Yes. Purchasing and installing air conditioning units in every public school is currently being prepared. The last answer, since the COVID-19 pandemic, when the water coolers were either removed or disconnected, DPE has been supplying bottled water to all public schools on a regular basis. That's all the questions. Oh, yes, that's all the questions regarding education.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. I believe there were clarification questions from MP Sarah Westcott Williams and MP Ludmila De Weaver. Would you be ready with those, or you need some time? The last. MP Westcott, did you have any clarification questions, right?
Yeah, I did.
You got the answers, or?
Not yet, no, not to the general clarification ones, and then the minister provided the answers from Justice.
So aren't we going with the cleaning of clarification round and then start with other questions? Is that the way? I'll adjourn for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Meeting adjourned. Welcome back. So in a central committee meeting, it's been decided that we will not have any clarification questions, but all the questions. So I will look at MP Bryson to start up with his new questions. MP Bryson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to you, my colleague, members of Parliament, the Secretary General, the Minister and his team, and the viewing public. Mr. Chairman, I want to, some of the questions were already answered, and that's why I kind of preferred to let some of those general questions come out, because I think a lot of us have very similar questions in terms of justice, but having heard that information that was provided, it does prompt some additional questions. To really go deeper into the understanding of what is it that the Parliament is approving, and then what is it that the government is going to execute, and then that way everyone's expectations are clear. Firstly, Mr. Chairman, looking at the budget, like MP Akeem Arundel had proposed or posed earlier, the amount of money that was budgeted, this is the 2023 budget, so this is anticipating some sort of payments or a budgeted amount that would be done within 2023. So if I understand correctly, because in the original presentation from the Minister of Justice, I believe an amount of 10.1 million was listed in the presentation. So also when we received the budget and we were discussing amounts of our faction, we didn't quite understand, was there a change of plan and also considering that members within the Ministry of Justice too kind of had that expectation. It's good to get the clarity on what is really happening. From what we understand now, although, if I understand correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, although, let's say the first year of payments would amount to 10.1 million, it appears that these payments are going to go LB by LB. So for that reason, between now and the end of the year, they anticipate that up to 2.5 million would be paid. Just want to make sure that I also, as well as those within justice, understand. Mr. Chairman, the fact is a lot of those in the Ministry of Justice were already concerned about it being over 10 years. If we don't clarify this immediately, it can come across that it's much more than 10 years, because if you divide 2.5 million into 40, that's much more than 10 years. So we really need the clarity on that, which has been provided to an extent, but I would like to know if that process that I outlined is correct. One of the other concerns from within the Ministry of Justice has overtime, so the new LBHAM. Apparently one of the issues when we met with the police officers during the Carnival issue that took place, one of their 3 requests was regarding the overtime regulation going back to the old way, I will call it, because the minister has stated and confirmed that if we do the overtime by the book, it is supposed to be capped at 1,000 guilders or 1,500 guilders or whatever, whereas before that was not the case. The fact is, having that overtime was one of the compensations, so to speak, that the police were able to use to kind of make ends meet. It justified them going out there in a thin police force to be able to earn additional money, but also protect our people. So my question is, in this new LBHAM, upon being signed, what is the overtime regulation going to look like? Is that going to continue to be how it is now? I believe not. Or is it going to be to the method that the union and the police officers have been desiring, which is not a capped system, but some sort of hourly rate on top of what they get? And if that is the case, has that been factored into the multi-year budget? I'm a little worried when I look at the amounts in terms of the multi-year budget, because it has it as a personnel allocation in terms of the increase, but I don't quite see how overtime fits into that, which, especially if we do not have a full force, when this LBHAM goes into effect, will we be able to keep up with the overtime payments? I hope so. I think we should. I think that's a great thing that they deserve. But is that reflected within the budget, the multi-year budget? So going forward, can we afford this? And to help me understand that question, I would like to understand what is the current status of active police officers, active immigration officers, and active customs officers. So how many we have actually working right now versus what the function book says we should have. So for example, if the function book says we should have 200 active officers, so I'm talking about those, not counting, let's say, the administrative staff, but the actual officers themselves within immigration, customs, and police force. If it says 200, at this moment, how many do we have? Because that would give you an indication on how heavy the burden is going to be on overtime going forward on these officers that are going the extra mile to be able to keep our country safe. Within the last year, we have known that there's been a lot of ups and downs or different disagreements and so on, and somehow we were able to come up with solutions each step of the way. But I'm wondering what type of effect this has had on the morale within the police force. Have we had people leaving the police force? Do we have a number on how much that is? So if we started the year at 100, are we now at 80, for example? I'm just giving a number so they understand my question. I would like to know where we were at the start of the year and what we're looking at by the end of the year in terms of active police officers, immigration officers, and customs officers. In the budget, Mr. Chairman, in the elucidation, it does give somewhat of a description on the number of justice workers, if I want to use a more global term, within the policy document of the budget. When I look strictly at that number, because I believe it also includes those that have been retired already, those that may no longer be in active duty, and various number of people, but the number seems quite high. If I'm not mistaken, I will try to pull up, but let me pose the question then while I get that. What is the total number of justice ministry workers based on the budget that some way or the other will be receiving retroactive payment within the next year or within the scope of this meerjaar and begroting? That would definitely give clarity to ensure that everybody is involved one way or the other. When we look at the amount, it does bring a worry, because if it's approximately 700, and forgive me if I'm not quoting the exact number, but if my memory serves correctly, that's the range in which it is, and you divide 2.5 million by 700, you're talking about approximately, on average, 3.5 million guilders per person before tax. So maybe what it is that there's going to be 3,500. Oh, no, definitely can't afford that. I wish we could. Maybe after reparations and debt cancellation. 3,500. So 3,500 guilders is how it averages off. And the way the budget was written, if you take it letter look, that's how you would interpret it. And I don't think that's the case. So I think a better explanation needs to be given as to what, from that 700, strictly speaking, on the 2023 budget, give me a number on how many are affected so that we can all understand what, let's say, the ratio should be expected on average per justice worker. Because as it is right now, it would come across as extremely concerning. Is there any methodology or order in which these LBs are going to be signed? Is it alphabetical? Is it based on rank? Is it based on so on? Because if we're talking eventually 700 LBs to be signed, the order in which they are done actually may matter in terms of the timing at which people will be paid. So I'm not sure if any thought has been put into that, because that is something that, you know, if somebody say, "Bah, you get your LB, bah, me mine yet," or, you know, you kind of have that sort of discussion within the ministry. Maybe if there is a method that is published and informed, if it's been done already, great. But if that can be published and informed to the justice workers, then everybody can understand, well, lucky me, my name is Bryson, so I'm earlier on, and maybe, you know, Williams is a little later. Or is it based on rank? Is it based on, for example, those that are already on pension, most in need? I'm not sure, but I'm hoping there is some sort of methodology. Then I want to touch on the long-term solutions for ensuring that we can continue to make these payments. The 2023 budget, a lot of the focus has been on the retroactive payments. And we've gotten some answers on that, and I've posed some additional questions. But a very significant part of this national ordinance on the budget is the fact that it includes a multi-year prognosis on the increase in cost to the government in order to fulfill the payments to justice workers. One of the questions I have in that regard is, as a country, are we looking at, well, indeed, as the minister pointed out, our economy has exceeded the expectations of both the IMF and the central bank, so we're doing something good. We're hoping that in 2024 and beyond that will be the case. But I do believe that we have to find a more structured way to ensure that there's funds being directly allocated for the purpose of covering this increase. In the budget, I don't see that, and I've looked at where I think we can be able to find that, and that's why I want to pose some questions to the minister in that regard. Currently in St. Martin, the harbor and the airport make significant use of our justice personnel. So the harbor, for example, customs plays a very critical role, and also immigration, but also at the airport, customs and immigration plays a critical role. Now, in many countries, although this is a government-owned company, it is a private company, and most countries charge for this service. The fact is that St. Martin should, in consultation, in my opinion, with the harbor and the airport, look to begin recouping the funds and the effort that is going into securing our borders and securing the goods and products that come into our country. If, for example, we were to be able to collect 1.5 million guilders from each of these entities for, again, the service that is being given to these entities, that is an amount of 3 million guilders that can go towards the Justice Ministry. Now, one would say, yeah, but the raising of the cost or so on. Interestingly as well, something that I've brought up before, strictly speaking from a legal perspective, the landing fees of our country are actually, based on the old legislation from since the Executive Council and Island Council, are due to the country as well as within the national ordinance. We have already given that up. For financial reasons, the arrangement was made that in order to clear their bonds back then, this was assigned to the airport. But at some point, in order to be able to get more contributions out of our government-owned entities, I would like to ask if the government can explore or negotiate with these entities to see if contributions can be made specifically from the harbor and the airport, and perhaps also those private terminals like Bobby's Marina and the one in close to the airport, who are also making use of immigration services, that they can make contributions for the service that is being given by the country to them. Schiphol has a passenger fee that goes directly towards immigration and customs services. The TSA in the United States also has a similar thing. St. Martin only recently included a security fee, which I believe is $1 per head, but that's for more a civil aviation purpose. I'm talking more directly justice. We have to come up with these type of methods to make sure that we don't put things in the budget that are there on paper, and then when the time comes that CFT starts to say, you got to cut, we now find ourselves in a situation where we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul because we don't have the necessary income coming in to cover this increased cost. 100% I am for and very happy that our justice workers are finally going to get the correct salaries and positions that they have. What I would like to know is that we are securing the long-term future of it being realistic to be able to collect enough money to make sure that they are paid, without then maybe saying, well, now we need to cut sports, or we need to cut tourism, or we need to cut, because we didn't also look at additional avenues for income. Okay, I think those are all my questions related to justice. I would like to move to a question actually for the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Chairman, recently we received there's some talk within the community related to a product that many people, well, some people in St. Martin have been using, and that is Revolut. And recently, a lot of us who have used Revolut, it's an online, basically like an online bank card. Many of us who have this card were informed by Revolut that they would no longer be operating, or anyone that has had an address in St. Martin would no longer be able to use their services. Okay, that's fine. That's a company decision, and I would think anyone would have to respect it. But others have actually looked into this by going to the help desk of Revolut and asking questions as to why. And apparently the answer that some have received is that due to complaints from the commercial banks in our country, and those complaints went on to the central bank, that Revolut was basically, to put it lightly, pressured to exit St. Martin. And mind you, when I say exit, they are not built in St. Martin. This is a product that is totally digital on your phone, but to no longer offer services in St. Martin. Mr. Chairman, if it is that we feel that all international banking services like PayPal and so on should have a license in St. Martin to operate, that would be one thing. I can welcome that, and then we should continue with what has been on the table for a very long time, the Payment Services Act from the central bank, to see how we can get these entities here. We know that the Ministry of Finance has also tried to find a solution. My problem with this is the same banks that have done absolutely nothing to help our local people get into e-commerce are the ones now, for those of us or those entrepreneurs that have found an alternate product, not only are the banks not offering the service, but they're going complaining about alternate services and telling them they shouldn't be in St. Martin. Mr. Chairman, if the banks were taking the initiatives themselves to properly offer online international e-commerce, not international banking like I need to do a wire transfer. We're talking that somebody, if they have a local bank account, that they can have an e-commerce product where if they do a graphic design for someone, or those that are making their different products, musicians who want to sell their music online and collect this money on Spotify, none of that is being offered by our local banks. And our local artists, local entrepreneurs find creative solutions to it, and then the same banks are going to it. And I've seen the response from the help desk of Revolut with my own eyes. And I don't think Revolut is going to, just come and make up something. This is coming from the banks. And I would like to know if the minister has any information about this, because I think this is very sad, and it shows where the system of our banking has continued to ignore the innovations that should come from within, the additional service. I've continued to say the commercial banks in St. Martin just want to be vaults. They don't want to expand service. They want to hide under the guise of AML and so on. And then not only that, now apparently obstructing other opportunities for locals as well. So I'd like if the minister has any information on that, or has heard of it, or if he can intervene in any way, because this is causing some concern for locals who have been using these services to enter e-commerce and diversify our economy. Mr. Chairman, just one more question for the Ministry of Finance. Can the minister just explain a little more in terms of the minister did answer that question on capital expenditures already. Never mind. Also regarding the tourist levy, the minister indeed indicated that the goal was to have this legislation finalized, not drafted, because the legislation, as you know, was initiated here, was taken over by the Ministry of VSA. Changes were made to bring them in line with the advices of the council advice, one of the key advices was that this should go through stakeholder consultations through an entity like the SER. From what I understand, Mr. Chairman, one of the roadblocks in the tourist levy was the fact that the SER has not been able to render an advice on the tourist levy. I would like to know if that is indeed the case, that because the fact that we don't have this advice from the SER, I don't know if it's because we don't have a board or if it's capacity. I would like clarity on that. Is the SER right now functioning? Are they able to give advices? And is there a timeline to which they would be able to render an advice on the tourist levy so that maybe within the 2024 period, we would be able to start to collect this much needed income? Mr. Chairman, I also want to have another question for Ministry of Justice, but not related to police payments and so on. And this has more to do with family reunification. Mr. Chairman, we have seen that in the budget, we consistently enjoy the fact that we are able to collect money from residence permits, and people apply for their permits. They get a work permit themselves, they pay for that. Residence permit, they pay for that. And then, as a normal thing, if somebody comes to work here, they should have the ability to be united with their family. And I have to thank our intern, Ms. Chantal Lopes, who did some research into this in terms of the international law and the framework for how we should be handling family reunification. And one of the key things that falls under, in terms of the treaty that has been signed by the Kingdom of the Netherlands, to which we are party, is the Family Reunification of 2003-86 EC of the European Union. And when you look at this, I don't think we in St. Martin have maybe updated our legislation and policies to really understand that it is an international standard that someone has the right to have their wife and their child with them. So I would like to ask, from a policy perspective, is the Ministry of Justice taking family reunification into account in the granting of permits? Do we understand also the social need that this may cause, or the strain, or so on, but balancing the fact that we want to ensure that we do not have people maybe coming in illegally to try to curb the system, like, for example, coming through the front side? Are we going to really get a handle on family reunification from an immigration perspective in line with the European and international standards that we are party to? And Mr. Chairman, I have a question on GEBE. Most of the questions that I had, or some of them have already been posed earlier. However, I just have maybe more of a remark. We've continued to debate within Parliament and society of the issues we've had as a society with GB, the billing and whether the hacks and all of this stuff. The central thing that I miss in a lot of this discussion and responses that I would want to get from the government is what specifically, or have we any ideas or any proposed solutions that GB is making to compensate for all of the mistakes, the errors? Whoever fault it is not my business. What I would like to acknowledge is that they have things that have gone amiss at GB. And at some point, the consumer should receive some sort of restitution and or relief. Have there been any discussions with GEBE about being able to provide some sort of relief? And I know some people are going to say, but how can you do that? The company is already cash-strapped, but so are the people of St. Martin, so are businesses, so are residents. So has there been any discussions with GEBE about ensuring that, based on the difficult times that people have had dealing with GB, the customer service has been impeccable? They've been trying their best, I must say, as someone who has dealt with them myself and referred others to them. But they are limited because from the presentation we got in the last GB meetings, these bills are being done manually and manually inputted into a system. Even if 1% of those are an error margin, it means that a significant number of people are going to continue to receive wrong bills. So I would like to know if the government on their end have done anything, and if not, I would have some follow-up remarks on that. Mr. Chairman, I did miss one question related to both taxes and the retroactive payments. Once the retroactive amounts go out, we know that, I believe, well, confirmed that this is a gross amount that is listed in the budget, the 2.5 million. If it is that this is a gross amount, then that means the government, as a result of paying this, will see an increase in income because there's taxes that are going to come out of that. Has that been factored into the budget? So if 2.5 million is paid out, 20% of that is retained as wage tax. Have we taken that into account when preparing our budget? Because it might very well be that there's additional room to either pay out more or something, or is it that this has already been calculated? Because I think that is something that we have to realize. A gross payment goes out. Some of that is coming actually right back to the government. I think... okay. That'll be all for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Bryson. The next person is MP Melissa Gums. MP Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Minister for the answers to the justice-related questions. I just had two more follow-ups on the answers received so far. So to understand correctly, the amount that is listed under Margarita Grocery in the budget basically pertains to two vendors, so a wholesaler and the actual retailer, which from an accounting perspective, and I'm not an accountant, it just doesn't seem like that would be responsible accounting. So if that could be confirmed, and is there an intention to split that so it's a little more accurate once the tender has been completed for the bread, food, and cleaning supplies? And regarding the question on the IMF's report, you provided the recommendations from that what is being done to address recommendations by VRAMI, as well as by your own ministry. And I'm not sure if you had a chance to check on the permit situation with TEAT, or if they have not responded. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Gums. The next person is MP Sarah Westcott Williams. MP Sarah, you have the floor.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I am going to go back to the issue of the justice payment, or rather the payment to the justice workers, just to make sure that I understand what is being said. The budget that was the budget 2023 that was approved in April of this year included an amount of 2.5 million guilders under the heading of retroactive payment. This retroactive payment in the approved budget 2023 was under the chapter of the police organization. After months of awaiting the budget, the amendment before Parliament now includes an increase of 700,000 guilders. That would mean if this budget passes, that there will be an amount of 3.2 million guilders under the chapter Retroactive Payment Justice Workers. The minister has explained that while this amount is listed under the police organization in the Ministry of Justice, the payment regards all justice workers. The minister has also indicated that this 3.2 million guilders, once this amendment is approved, will pay justice workers for the period January 1, 2023 to December 2023. So 3.2 million guilders is going to pay out all justice workers entitled to a correction in their payment over the year 2023. The payment to justice workers for the period 10-10-10 through the 31st of December 2022 will follow. Is there already an agreement and understanding about that payment? The minister on more than one occasion in his answers stated that individual decrees, national decrees, LBs, so to speak, will be made, and based on those LBs, Landsbesluiten, payment will be made to the individual justice workers. So, I'm understanding from the government that the 3.2 million guilders that this budget will ratify, if it is passed, will pay all justice workers what is due to them only for the year 2023. So, my question is, as per January the 1st, 2023, are all of the justice workers' salaries been updated? And is that a retroactive that justice workers will receive, I hope, in this month? Because that's all we have left for 2023. and that's 3.2. As per the 1st of January 2024, what amount will be budgeted since it has been calculated? We remember all the pictures and everything that went with the presentation of all the numbers that go with the payment to justice workers. And so I asked, following the year 2023, what amount will be budgeted for the payment of the retroactive to justice workers between the period of 10/10/10 to the 31st of December 2022? What will be budgeted per year? How many years? Where does this 10-year thing fit into the whole picture? So if I could get a clear and straight answer where that is concerned. How many phases are there following the phase of the 3.2 million guilders? How many phases? When will it be paid? So, Mr. Chairman, that's with respect to the answer given by the minister on behalf of his colleagues. And then, Mr. Chairman, some of the amendments that have not really been explained by the minister, amendments to the budget that we have before us, and I would ask the minister to explain it. Under the Ministry of General Affairs, there is an amount that has now been put in the budget for 1.7 million guilders for the RESEM bid. Can the minister give that project and what our part is in it, please? Can that be explained? I've looked through the elucidation. It is not there. The matter of, but I think the answer has been somewhat provided to the question that I'm going to ask now. And under general affairs, there is an amount for gratifications, etc., of 750,000 guilders. This, according to me, was not there before in the budget. So now that it's there, what is this? Does this have something to do with the question asked by my colleague regarding the cost of living adjustment for civil servants? Or is this really for the little increases that some individual civil servants are supposed to get? How come it has been added in now, that plus 750,000 guilders? Under the Ministry of Finance, an amendment has been made in this budget that is for 1.6 million for the SBIR. Yes. Can the minister give some more elucidation with respect to that post? I have asked regarding the justice workers and this 3.2 million that this budget is seeking to ratify. And I go to the following question for the minister, and that is whether this amended budget has been sent or was sent to the CFT. And if it was, have they reacted formally? If it was not, why not? And why do I ask this, Mr. Chairman? Because while the government can send a draft amended budget to the CFT, they must send an approved budget to the CFT. So I would like to know the CFT's reaction to this particular budget, because otherwise, no advice was asked, because I don't see it in the pieces of the budget. But if this budget is approved, that needs to go to the CFT. Not if, or maybe, it has to. An approved budget has to go to the CFT. So if we could have gotten their reaction on what is before us now, we might be able to prevent a reaction on an approved budget of Parliament by the CFT. So hence my question, why wasn't CFT formally consulted on the draft budget? Mr. Chairman, I would like to know the amount that is stated as a subsidy for the St. Martin Housing Foundation. As you know, that is to help out persons who can't pay the total amount of rent. And I would like to know what the 728,744 guilders in subsidy. So who are we helping? How many subsidies are paid? Is everyone entitled to a subsidy? Is the Housing Foundation receiving the subsidy from government to assist all who need a subsidy for their housing? Mr. Chairman, a lot has been said and written in this amendment or the amended budget regarding the IMF report and regarding the CBCS report. But, Mr. Chairman, our room tax has been increased with over 4 million guilders. Since we are now in the month of December, can the minister provide the actual receipts, the actual amounts received in room tax? Because the government has increased their budget with 4 million, has increased room tax with 4 million. So while it's good to hear, well, you know, our GDP is going to increase and growth and things, but concretely, what has the government received thus far? Because remember, the government had in the budget a 10 million guilders for a tourist tax. That needed to be taken out because notwithstanding the warning signs about that being feasible coming from members of parliament, it was still left in the budget 2023. So could I receive concretely what prompted the increase in room tax concretely? The same thing could be said for payment by the casinos for personnel working in the casinos, so government personnel working in the casinos. That has been increased with nearly 2 million guilders. And the question is, based on what? Have more casinos come into operation? Are they paying more? What is an increase of 2 million in casino personnel payments? What is that based on? And again, let me be clear. When I say casino personnel, it's not that government pays personnel in the casinos. Government pays government personnel, the controllers in the casino, who are government employees. Mr. Chairman, and then I come to concessions. According to the budget, we should be receiving the following concessions. 6.5 million guilders from GB, 4 million from the harbor, 1.5 million from BTP, projected for 2023. Mr. Chairman, again, we are in December. What of these numbers that I just mentioned have been already received by government? And if we have not received what is projected, 6.5 from GB, 4 from harbor, and 1.5 from BTP, then are we going to receive that in December? Are we going to receive it, or what has not yet been received for concession from these companies? Are we going to receive it in December? So what is the actual receipt of these concessions? The amounts that are mentioned there. And then in the elucidation to this amended budget, it is stated that in 2024, the harbor would potentially pay dividend. Now that's different than the concession fees. And what in the harbor numbers, figures have given the government this feel that the harbor will be able to pay dividend? Mr. Chairman, in the line of the same questions, the long lease payments have been increased with 1.3 million guilders in this amended budget. Is it based on actual receipts? Receipt of long lease payments that the government could increase it with 1.3 million. And Mr. Chairman, then I've on more than one occasion mentioned this. The government is supposed to, by law, present the parliament with an overview of subsidies and the like to all organizations. Now, the listing that we have been receiving, where the names and the numbers to the amount that whoever is being paid, whether it's school boards, you name it, any entities or persons receiving subsidy from government should be listed along with the budget. However, in this amended budget, that listing does not correspond with the numbers in the budget. So we got a listing, and you would say, oh yeah, but I send the list of the subsidies and the like, the so-called inkomens, overdrachten and subsidies, etc., etc. And I just want to refer the minister, for example, to the integrity chamber. The integrity chamber on the list of subsidies and transfers, overdrachten, is not what is in the budget under the integrity chamber. And so there are more. So apparently this list is a list that existed, I don't know since when, and it's just attached to the budget to say the list is there, but the numbers do not correspond. The list does not correspond with the numbers in the budget. And then, Mr. Chairman, I want to know for the budget of the University of St. Martin, which has not changed, has remained at 1.7 million. At the beginning of this year, when we were dealing with the budget 2023 as now approved, I asked the same question. And the Minister of Education at the time, and I paraphrase, said that priorities had to be established and decisions had to be made. So a budget like the one for USM was not the budget requested by USM, but the government could not give anything more than the 1.7 million. And so my question is, would the University of St. Martin not be one of the institutions of which the government could have said, with the increase in income, we are able to give a little more to on the subsidy of the USM? Because that's what the government told us at the beginning of this year. When the budget 2023 was approved, we can't do all that we would like to do, but as the year goes by, as the months go by, we will see how our income is, and then adjustments for such institutions like the USM can be made. And so I asked, why in this case, as it was asked by members of parliament back then, why was nothing else considered for the USM, given the, according to the minister, improved picture of income for the government of St. Martin? Mr. Chairman, I think I can't even call it a round because we don't really have rounds, but I think for this session, I want to leave it here where my questions are concerned, and I thank you.
Thank you, MP Sarah Westcott-Williams. The next person I have is MP Christopher Emmanuel. MP Emmanuel, you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have a few more questions relating to GEBE. The minister smiled. I know the minister is going to pass them on to the requisite body, so the answers will be coming either way. Mr. Chairman, I would like to know concerning GEBE when it comes to their data. Is it correct that luckily for GEBE management and government of St. Martin, that prior to suspending the former acting temporary manager, a company named NetPro, which is based in Curacao, was recruited and signed by NVGEBE in August the 29th, 2022, for cybersecurity services and backup services? NVGEBE data being saved in the cloud for the first time in history was also saved locally, but also in Bonaire. Mr. Chairman, is it true that NVGEBE management did not trust NetPro to send their data directly via the net, resulting in NVGEBE chartering a plane in the amount of $12,925 on July the 19th, 2023. And they also sent Lenry from BDO, GEBE's new IT manager who works at BDO in Bonaire, to Bonaire to receive the company's data drive and return it not only with a drive, but also with one of NetPro's employees on the private plane. Mr. Chairman, is it true that upon receipt of the drive, NVGEB IT department backed up the servers and NetPro did the restoring? Thus, the IT department built the machines, prepared the machines, and NetPro did the restoration. If that is the case, Mr. Chairman, is it true that based on the above and having NetPro save the data in the clouds, NVGEB was able to then upload the data, resulting in GEB being able to open in 3 days? Mr. Chairman, Dr. Shireen Daniel, Chief Auditor, is at home collecting thousands in penalties next to her salary, despite the judge ordered GEBE for the second time on August the 30th in a court injunction that GEBE themselves filed. The people of St. Martin is suffering with high bills, and here is GEBE using our money to pay thousands of dollars to Dr. Shireen Daniel just to stay at home. In fact, Daniel has been on paid leave for over 13 months and have won all court cases. My question to the Honorable Minister, isn't this clearly mismanagement of funds coming from GEBE? And if the government is aware of this, what is the opinion, Mr. Chairman, of the government, seeing that they are also part of the shareholder in the representation of the Prime Minister? Of the Prime Minister being the shareholder, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would also like to ask a few questions concerning the tourism office, like I asked earlier, but this is more in line of the whole new unveiling and the logo and everything, Mr. Chairman. I would like to know, did the logo evolve as a result from a tourism master plan? If yes, can the minister give the master plan or explain which and what master plan is it? What is the short, mid, and long-term vision of tourism? What is the carrying capacity in terms of number of visitors? What happened to the St. Martin Tourism Authority? Can the minister describe the functions and number of persons in the St. Martin Tourist Bureau? How much is spent on marketing? Who developed the new tourism logo and when? Which stakeholders participate in the design of this new logo? I don't know if you have seen the new logo, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, how much did this logo cost? Does this logo represent both halves of the island? If not, why does the logo include the airport on the North Bay side on its image? What is the amount spent on tourism marketing, Mr. Chairman? What percentage of the overall budget is allocated to the tourism sector? What are the key priorities for this allocation within the tourism sector? How has the past budget allocation impacted tourism growth, infrastructure, development, and visitor numbers in 2022 versus 2023? Are there specific success stories or areas that require more attention? Mr. Chairman, what provisions are being made for improving tourism infrastructure, such as transportation, networks, accommodation, and tourist facilities? Mr. Chairman, this morning, whilst I was listening to Lady Grace said she was so delighted when she was listening to a program, and on the program in the United States, they was watching this sitcom, and the sitcom asked, but where is your manager? And the person came up and said, oh, the manager is vacationing in Aruba. And she was like, oh, wow. She was so happy to hear the word, hear the country Aruba being called. And then next week she asked, I wonder how much did Aruba paid for that little plug? In our marketing, Mr. Chairman, what strategies are in place to promote the country as a tourist destination? How much of the budget is dedicated to marketing and promotional activities? Is there a specific allocation within the budget aimed at preserving natural resources, cultural heritage, or promoting sustainable tourism practices? Are there initiative or incentive to encourage private sector involvement in tourism development? How is the budget supporting the diversification of tourism offering beyond traditional attractions to encourage a wide range of visitors? Mr. Chairman, what measures are in place to leverage tourism for job creation and economic growth in the local communities? How is the budget addressing potential risk of the tourism sector, such as international political instability, environmental concerns, or global economic fluctuations? What mechanisms are in place to assess the effectiveness of the budget allocations and adjust strategies accordingly? Mr. Chairman, is the Tourism Bureau a member of the World Tourism Caribbean Tourism Organization? In any other international organization, what are the membership fees and how much is outstanding? The reason why I'm asking these questions, Mr. Chairman, is because they give sort of an understanding on how the budget for tourism is being used or spent. I would like to know with this amendment of the budget, if there's any new allocation, plug, any input, any monies whatsoever going to tourism. Mr. Chairman, I've listened to the minister, and yes, he may be the Minister of Finance. But Mr. Chairman, we have heard all the stories. The cruise is putting in 350,000. The government is going to match 350,000. The tender has been gone out. Someone won the tender. And the marketplace, I mean, not even the marketplace, the simplest thing as a marketplace, Mr. Chairman, the government can't get off of the ground. Mr. Chairman, we are suffering in this country. The airport is in a mess, Mr. Chairman, with its new unveiling that they had a soft opening, or whichever way you want to put it. And up to now, the government can't address what actually is happening at the airport, Mr. Chairman. There's much more questions I have in relation to Telem and the airport and the hospital, but I will leave it at this for today. Mr. Chairman, you want all of them? You sure? It's a lot of questions.
You done?
Yeah.
Thank you, MP Christopher Emmanuel. The next person I see is MP Grisha Halligan-Martin. MP Grisha, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just a special request, a kind request, that once this report is final, the report with the answers, that we allow members of parliament at least 48 hours to review the report before we start with a public debate. Because I really need time to, the questions that were posed here are good, but I would need to go over the answers before I can decide for myself what questions I'm going to pose in the public meeting. So please allow us at least minimum 28, preferably 48 hours to go over the report. Not drop the report on us and call a public meeting the next day. So I'm kindly requesting that.
Minimum 28 or 40?
Yeah, 28, 28 hours.
24 or 48?
Mr. Chairman, you're tired today now? You need rest? 48 max. I would love to have 48, but 24 I can handle.
Thank you, MP Grisha Halligan-Martin. I'll see how the Secretariat works on that, and hopefully we can get that time. I don't see any other members of Parliament have any questions, so I will look at my right. Minister, we have our meeting to be continued tomorrow at 10 a.m. Will that be sufficing? No, I promised everyone 5 p.m. we're going to close today. So I'm 13 minutes over, which is okay. So tomorrow 10 a.m. will you be ready? Is that good enough time? We can start, okay. So members of Parliament, we'd like to adjourn this meeting and continue tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Meeting adjourned.